The conference room buzzed with tension as the fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the polished mahogany table. Elena Martinez sat frozen in her chair, her fingers gripping the edge of her seat so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Across from her, Victoria Langston, her boss of 3 years and CEO of Innovatech Solutions, was pacing like a predator circling its prey. "You've been nothing but a disappointment since day one," Victoria snapped, her voice cutting through the air like shattered glass. "Your performance reviews are mediocre at best, your ideas lack originality, and frankly, I don't see how you've managed to stay here for this long." Elena's heart pounded in her chest, each word hitting her like a hammer blow. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but the lump in her throat wouldn't let her. The irony was almost suffocating. Just last week, she had received an email congratulating her on being named one of the lead architects behind Innovatech's groundbreaking $250 million patent, a project that would revolutionize clean energy technology worldwide. But now, sitting under Victoria's cold glare, it felt like none of it mattered. Victoria stopped pacing and leaned forward, planting both hands on the table. Her manicured nails tapped impatiently against the surface. "I've made my decision," she said, her tone final. "Effective immediately, you're terminated. Clean out your desk by noon, or security will escort you out." Elena blinked, struggling to process what was happening. This wasn't just about losing her job, it was about being dismissed as though she were invisible, inconsequential. It stung more than she could have imagined. Yet deep down, beneath the shock and humiliation, something else stirred, anger. Not the kind of fleeting rage that dissipates after a few moments, but a slow-burning fury that began to coil around her chest. She stood abruptly, surprising even herself. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor, drawing startled glances from the other executives seated around the table. They had all gathered for what they thought would be a routine meeting, only to witness this public execution. Some looked away awkwardly, others watched with barely concealed curiosity. No one spoke up. "Fine," Elena said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "If that's how you feel, then there's no point in staying." Without another word, she turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she refused to look back. As she reached for the handle, she heard Victoria call after her. "Don't bother coming back tomorrow," Victoria said sharply. "We'll mail your severance package." Elena paused, her hand still on the doorknob. For a brief moment, she considered turning around, telling them everything, the sleepless nights, the countless hours spent perfecting every detail of the patent, the sacrifices she'd made to bring their company into the global spotlight. But what good would it do? Victoria wouldn't believe her. None of them would. To them, she was just another disposable cog in the machine. Instead, she opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, letting it close behind her with a soft click. The sound echoed faintly, marking the end of an era, or so it seemed. Walking back to her cubicle felt surreal. The office buzzed with its usual chaos, employees chatting over coffee or typing furiously at their desks. No one paid her any attention, unaware of the bombshell that had just dropped in the conference room. Elena moved mechanically, her legs carrying her forward while her mind raced elsewhere. Her workspace was small but familiar, cluttered with sticky notes, half-empty coffee cups, and stacks of papers filled with calculations and diagrams. She stared at it for a moment, feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and bitterness. This tiny corner of the world had been her sanctuary, her battlefield, her prison. And now it was gone. As she began packing her belongings into a cardboard box, memories flooded back unbidden. She remembered the first time she walked into Innovatech's sleek headquarters, fresh out of graduate school and brimming with ambition. Back then, she had believed in the company's mission, to create innovative solutions that could change lives. She had poured her soul into her work, determined to prove herself in a male-dominated industry where women like her were often overlooked. But things hadn't gone according to plan. Despite her contributions, she remained invisible, relegated to the sidelines while others took credit for her ideas. Victoria, in particular, had always treated her with thinly veiled disdain, dismissing her suggestions during meetings and micromanaging her projects until they lost their spark. Still, Elena had persevered, driven by a quiet determination to make a difference. And she had succeeded, in ways no one except a select few knew. The patent application had been the culmination of years of hard work, late nights, and relentless dedication. It started as a rough sketch on a napkin during a lunch break, scribbled hastily between bites of a sandwich. Over time, it evolved into a fully realized concept, refined and tested until it became undeniable proof of her genius. When the patent was finally approved, Elena had allowed herself a rare moment of pride. She hadn't done it for recognition or accolades, she had done it because she believed in the power of innovation to transform the world. But now, standing amidst the remnants of her career, she couldn't help but wonder if it had all been for nothing. Would anyone ever know the truth? Or would her legacy vanish along with her name? A sharp knock on the partition wall startled her out of her thoughts. Startled, she turned to see Rachel, one of her closest colleagues, peering over the divider. Rachel's face was pale, her eyes wide with concern. "Elena, are you okay?" Rachel asked softly, stepping into the cubicle. "I heard what happened in the meeting. Is it true?" Elena hesitated, unsure of how much to say. Part of her wanted to confide in Rachel, to share the burden weighing heavily on her shoulders. But another part, the part that had learned to guard her secrets fiercely, held her back. "I'm fine," she replied eventually, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just cleaning up." Rachel frowned, clearly unconvinced. "You don't deserve this," she said firmly. "Everyone knows how hard you've worked for this company. If anyone should be getting promoted, it's you, not fired." Elena chuckled humorlessly. "Apparently, my hard work isn't enough for some people." "That's not fair," Rachel insisted. "What are you going to do now?" Elena shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant despite the turmoil swirling inside her. "I guess I'll figure something out. Life goes on, right?" Rachel opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say anything, a loud commotion erupted from the direction of the elevators. Both women turned to see a group of reporters swarming into the office, cameras flashing and microphones thrust forward. At the center of the chaos stood none other than Marcus Reed, Innovateca's head of PR, looking flustered as he tried to corral the crowd. "Excuse me." Marcus shouted above the din. "This is a private workspace. Please wait outside." "What's going on?" Elena whispered, her stomach sinking. She already knew the answer. Rachel shook her head grimly. They must have found out about the patent. The press release was supposed to go live tomorrow morning, but someone must have leaked it early. Sure enough, as the reporters pushed past Marcus and began descending upon unsuspecting employees, snippets of conversation drifted toward Elena. "Innovatec just filed for a $250 million patent. Is it true? Who's responsible for the breakthrough? How does the company plan to implement the new technology?" Elena felt sick. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, imagining the impact her invention would have on renewable energy initiatives worldwide. Now, hearing the excitement and admiration in the reporters' voices, she realized it would happen without her. Her name wouldn't be mentioned. Her contribution wouldn't be acknowledged. To the outside world, Innovateca's success would belong solely to Victoria Langston and her team of top executives. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. Crying wouldn't solve anything. Instead, she focused on finishing her task, folding her arms tightly around the box as though it might shield her from the pain. "Hey," Rachel said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Don't let them win. You're better than this place. Better than her." Elena nodded, though she wasn't sure she believed it. For now, survival was enough. Survival, and finding a way to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Later that evening, as Elena sat alone in her apartment nursing a cup of tea, her phone buzzed incessantly on the coffee table. Notifications poured in from friends, former coworkers, and even acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to know why she had left Innovatec so suddenly. Everyone wanted answers. She ignored them all, staring blankly at the glowing screen until it went dark. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the occasional car horn blaring outside her window. Night had fallen, casting long shadows across the room and making her feel even smaller than she already did. But amidst the darkness, a spark ignited within her, a flicker of resolve that refused to be extinguished. Maybe she couldn't undo what had happened today. Maybe she couldn't erase the injustice or rewrite history. But she could fight back. She could find a way to tell her story, to ensure that her voice was heard. The question was, where to begin? Her gaze drifted to the stack of documents she had brought home from the office. Notes, blueprints, emails documenting every stage of the patent's development. They were proof of her brilliance, evidence of the countless hours she had sacrificed for Innovateka's success. Perhaps they could also serve as ammunition. With renewed determination, Elena set her tea aside and reached for the pile of papers. One by one, she spread them out on the table, studying each page with meticulous care. Somewhere in these details lay the key to reclaiming her legacy. All she had to do was find it. As dawn broke over the city skyline, painting the horizon in shades of gold and pink, Elena felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges and uncertainty. But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face it. Because she wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. She was fighting for herself. The next morning, Elena woke with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. The weight of her dismissal still lingered, but it no longer crushed her, it fueled her. She brewed a strong cup of coffee and sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by the scattered remnants of her work from Innovatek. Each document was more than just paper, it was a piece of her soul, evidence of sleepless nights and relentless determination. Her first step was to organize everything into categories: initial sketches, emails outlining key breakthroughs, peer reviews that praised her methodology, and even congratulatory messages from colleagues who had unknowingly acknowledged her genius. As she sorted through the materials, one name kept appearing: Dr. Adrian Keller, the head of Innovateka's research division. He had been her closest ally within the company, someone who understood the value of her contributions when others dismissed them. Adrian wasn't just a mentor, he was a witness to her journey. If anyone could validate her role in the patent, it was him. But reaching out to him wouldn't be easy. Adrian was loyal to the company, and if he chose to side with Victoria over her, Elena knew she'd lose any chance of proving her case publicly. Still, she had to try. After hours of drafting and redrafting an email, Elena finally sent it off. In measured tones, she explained her situation without sounding accusatory or desperate. She simply asked for his support, reminding him of their shared commitment to innovation and progress. Then, she waited. While waiting for Adrian's response, Elena decided to take another approach. She logged onto her laptop and began researching intellectual property laws related to patents. Her stomach churned as she read about cases where inventors were stripped of credit due to corporate politics or outright theft. Some fought back successfully, while others disappeared into obscurity. Determined not to become the latter, she bookmarked articles, printed legal documents, and reached out to a lawyer friend from college, hoping for guidance. By mid-afternoon, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Adrian. Her heart raced as she opened it. Subject: a difficult situation. Elena. I've thought long and hard about your message. First, let me say how deeply sorry I am for what's happened. You deserve far better than the treatment you received yesterday, and worse, the lack of recognition for your monumental contribution to the patent. You're right, we've always believed in the same vision for this company. And yes, I know exactly how much work you put into this project. No one else at Innovatek could have pulled it off the way you did. But speaking out against Victoria, well, it's complicated. My position here isn't secure enough to risk alienating upper management. That said, I want to help you. Attached are some internal communications between us during the development phase. They clearly show your leadership on the project. Use them wisely. Stay strong, Elena. Don't let them silence you. Best regards. Adrian. Elena exhaled sharply, relief washing over her. Adrian hadn't outright pledged his public support, but he'd given her something invaluable: proof. She downloaded the attachments and scanned through them eagerly. There were emails detailing technical discussions, timelines showing her as the primary author of critical decisions, and even notes from meetings where Adrian himself credited her ideas. For the first time since being fired, Elena allowed herself a small smile. This was ammunition. With these documents, she could build a narrative that exposed the truth, not just to the world, but to herself. For too long, she'd internalized Victoria's criticisms, believing she wasn't good enough. Now, staring at concrete evidence of her brilliance, she realized the problem wasn't her. It was the system that refused to see her worth. But exposing the truth wouldn't come without consequences. Going public meant risking lawsuits, damaging relationships, and potentially tarnishing her reputation in the industry. Yet staying silent felt like betraying not only herself but also every other woman who had ever been overlooked or undervalued because of systemic biases. This fight wasn't just personal anymore, it was bigger than her. She spent the rest of the day crafting a strategy. Phase 1 involved gathering allies, people who had witnessed her contributions firsthand. Rachel immediately came to mind. When Elena called her, Rachel didn't hesitate to offer her support. "I'll do whatever it takes," Rachel said firmly. "Victoria may run that company, but she doesn't own the truth. Let's make sure everyone knows what really happened." Encouraged by Rachel's enthusiasm, Elena reached out to 2 other former co-workers who had worked closely with her on the patent. Both agreed to vouch for her, though they expressed concerns about potential backlash. Elena assured them she'd protect their identities until they were ready to go public. Phase 2 required finding a platform to share her story. Social media seemed like the obvious choice. It was fast, accessible, and capable of amplifying voices overnight. But Elena hesitated. Posting online would mean opening herself up to scrutiny, criticism, and possibly harassment. Could she handle that? As if reading her mind, Rachel suggested starting small. "Why don't you write a blog post? Something detailed but professional. Share it privately with trusted contacts first, then gradually expand your audience. That way, you can control the narrative before it blows up." It was a smart idea, and Elena got to work immediately. Over the next few days, she poured her heart into writing. The post began with her firing, painting a vivid picture of the humiliation and injustice she'd endured. From there, she transitioned into her journey at Innovatech, highlighting the challenges she faced as a woman in STEM and the countless hours she dedicated to developing the patent. She ended with a call to action, urging readers to recognize the importance of giving credit where it was due. When the draft was complete, she shared it with Rachel and her lawyer friend for feedback. Both offered minor edits but overall praised its impact. "This is powerful," Rachel said after reading it. "People are going to rally behind you." Finally, Elena hit publish. Within minutes, her post began gaining traction. Friends and acquaintances commented words of encouragement, sharing the link across their networks. By evening, strangers started chiming in, expressing outrage on her behalf and applauding her courage. One commenter wrote, "Your story inspires me to stand up for myself too. Thank you for being brave." The wave of support was overwhelming and terrifying. For every positive comment, there was a negative one questioning her motives or accusing her of exaggeration. Trolls mocked her for airing dirty laundry, while skeptics demanded proof. Elena braced herself, knowing this reaction was inevitable. She responded calmly, directing doubters to the documents Adrian had provided and inviting them to verify her claims independently. Meanwhile, news outlets picked up on the growing buzz. Journalists began contacting her, requesting interviews to discuss her allegations against Innovatech. At first, Elena declined, wary of saying anything that might jeopardize her case. But when a major tech publication reached out, promising to investigate further, she agreed to speak under certain conditions. She insisted they focus on the broader issue of gender inequality in STEM rather than turning her story into tabloid fodder. The interview aired late one night, and Elena watched it nervously from her couch. On screen, she looked composed yet vulnerable, her voice steady as she recounted her experiences. The host listened intently, occasionally interjecting with questions that probed deeper into the systemic issues plaguing the industry. By the end of the segment, Elena felt drained but hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, her story could spark change. The next morning, her phone exploded with notifications. The video had gone viral, sparking conversations across social media platforms. Hashtags like #CreditWhereIt'sDue and #StandWithElena trended globally, drawing attention to similar stories of women whose achievements had been erased or stolen. Influencers in the tech community amplified her message, calling for accountability and transparency in corporate environments. Innovatech remained eerily silent throughout the uproar. Victoria issued no statement, nor did anyone else from upper management. Behind closed doors, however, Elena suspected they were scrambling to contain the damage. She imagined boardroom meetings filled with panicked executives debating whether to deny her claims, discredit her, or attempt to negotiate privately. And then, unexpectedly, Victoria broke her silence. A press release appeared on Innovatech's website early Friday morning. In it, Victoria denied all accusations, painting Elena as disgruntled and ungrateful. She claimed the patent was a collaborative effort involving dozens of employees and dismissed Elena's role as insignificant. Worse, she hinted at potential legal action against Elena for defamation. Reading the statement sent Elena spiraling. How dare Victoria twist the truth so brazenly? How dare she minimize years of hard work into nothingness? Anger surged through her veins, hotter and fiercer than ever before. But instead of crumbling, Elena channeled that anger into action. She updated her blog post, attaching screenshots of the emails Adrian had sent along with timestamps proving her involvement in every stage of the patent's development. Then, she drafted a new statement, addressing Victoria directly. You can try to bury the truth, she wrote, but facts speak louder than lies. The world is watching now. And we won't stop until justice is served. Within hours, the internet rallied around her once again. Petitions demanding accountability gained thousands of signatures. Former Innovatech employees came forward with their own stories of mistreatment and discrimination. Even some current staff anonymously confirmed Elena's claims, adding fuel to the fire. But amidst the chaos, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was far from over. Victoria wasn't going down without a fight, and neither was she. As the days turned into weeks, the storm surrounding Elena and Innovatech reached a fever pitch. The media couldn't get enough of the story, dissecting every twist and turn as though it were a courtroom drama playing out in real time. Victoria's attempts to discredit Elena only fueled public outrage, with many pointing out how her defensive tone reeked of guilt. Meanwhile, Elena became an unlikely symbol for underrepresented voices in STEM, a beacon of resilience and defiance against systemic injustice. The tipping point came when Dr. Adrian Keller decided he'd had enough. Torn between loyalty to the company and his conscience, Adrian ultimately chose the latter. In a bold move, he released a statement corroborating Elena's account, detailing her indispensable role in developing the patent. He included timestamps, project logs, and internal communications that left no room for doubt. Elena was the brain behind Innovatech's $250 million breakthrough. Adrian's testimony sent shockwaves through the industry. It wasn't just damning evidence, it was validation. For Elena, it felt like finally stepping out of the shadows after years of being unseen. But more importantly, it gave her supporters ammunition to demand accountability from Innovatech. Public pressure mounted. Investors began questioning their ties to the company, threatening to pull funding if transparency wasn't restored. Employees staged protests outside Innovatech's headquarters, holding signs that read "Credit where it's due" and "No justice, no peace." Even competitors in the tech world weighed in, condemning Victoria's actions and praising Elena's courage. Faced with mounting scrutiny, Innovatech's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Behind closed doors, they debated whether to stand by Victoria or cut their losses by severing ties with her. After hours of deliberation, they made their decision. One crisp Monday morning, Elena woke to find her phone flooded with notifications. At first, she thought it was another wave of trolls or critics, but this time, something was different. A breaking news alert caught her eye. Victoria Langston resigns as CEO of Innovatech amid patent controversy. Elena blinked, reading the headline twice to make sure she wasn't dreaming. According to reports, Victoria had stepped down effective immediately, citing personal reasons. The board issued a follow-up statement acknowledging missteps in leadership and pledging to implement reforms aimed at fostering inclusivity and fairness within the company. But the surprises didn't stop there. Later that afternoon, Elena received an email from the board itself. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Subject: a long overdue acknowledgement. Dear Ms. Martinez, on behalf of Innovatech Solutions, we would like to extend our sincerest apologies for the treatment you endured during your tenure with us. Your contributions to the development of our recent patent were nothing short of extraordinary, and we deeply regret that your efforts went unrecognized for so long. We are taking immediate steps to rectify this oversight. Effective today, your name will be officially added to all documentation related to the patent, ensuring proper credit is given where it is due. Additionally, we wish to offer you a substantial settlement package as compensation for the harm caused. While we understand that no amount of money can undo the past, we hope this gesture demonstrates our commitment to making amends. We also invite you to participate in shaping the future of our organization, should you choose to do so. Once again, please accept our heartfelt apologies. You have our utmost respect and admiration. Sincerely, the Board of Directors. Elena stared at the screen, tears streaming down her face. For so long, she had fought not just for recognition but for validation, for someone, anyone, to acknowledge her worth. And now, here it was, written plainly in black and white. She allowed herself a moment to cry, to let the weight of everything she'd been through wash over her. When she finally composed herself, she forwarded the email to Rachel, Adrian, and her lawyer friend with a single line, "We did it." In the months that followed, Elena embraced her newfound role as an advocate for change. She partnered with organizations dedicated to supporting women and minorities in STEM, using her platform to amplify their voices and push for policy reforms. Her story inspired countless others to speak up about their own experiences, sparking a movement that rippled far beyond the walls of Innovatech. As for the patent, its success continued to grow, revolutionizing clean energy technology on a global scale. Elena's name appeared prominently in every press release, article, and conference presentation related to the project. She even delivered a TED Talk titled The Power of Invisible Work, which garnered millions of views online. And yet, despite all the accolades and opportunities that came her way, Elena remained grounded. She knew the fight wasn't over, not entirely. There were still barriers to break, ceilings to shatter, and injustices to address. But she faced them with renewed strength, knowing she wasn't alone. One evening, as she stood on the balcony of her new apartment overlooking the city skyline, Elena reflected on how far she'd come. The journey had been painful, exhausting, and at times seemingly impossible, but it had also been transformative. She had discovered a fire within herself that refused to be extinguished, a voice that refused to be silenced. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. Free from the fear of invisibility. Free from the need for external validation. Free to define her own path on her own terms. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Elena smiled. Because sometimes, justice isn't just about winning, it's about reclaiming what was always yours.